Welcome back. Bill Kelly Show, 900 CHML. Glad you're with us here today. It is, I think, a Canadian icon. It's the home of the Canadian Open and has been for many, many years, although it does bounce from place to place. It's going to be in Hamilton this year, but we're talking about Glen Abbey Golf Course, right? If you've never played there, maybe you've gone to the Open and walked the course. It's just an incredible establishment. Well, there is a move afoot right now to tear it down and to build houses and apartments up there. And the town council is very upset about this, and it looks as if the fight for Glen Abbey is now going to go to the Ontario Court of Appeals. Bill McKinlay is with a group called Save Glen Abbey, and he joins us on the Bill Kelly Show to bring us up to speed on this. Bill, thanks so much for the time. It's good to have you with us again.
Yeah, good morning. Nice to be here.
Well, I was kind of hoping this would all be resolved and we could all just put it to bed, but this persists. Maybe give us an update on where you are with this, Bill.
Well, the town has said right from the word go that they are going to fight the application to develop Glen Abbey Golf Course. The developer wants to put in 3,200 homes, which include condominiums, single residences, and apartments. And we're a group of basically residents of Oakville. Some live near Glen Abbey, some of us live further away from it. And we agree with you that this is a Canadian icon that's worth preserving. If we start destroying history, what have we got left?
And there is history here. I mean, we've talked about the history of this golf course. I mean, and it's a storied history. I mean, right back from the beginning, we all know, I think most of us that are golf fans understand that, this was a golf course that was designed by Jack Nicklaus, and it has become home to the Canadian Open for many, many years now. Some of the greatest golfers in the world have played on that course. And I was just knocked out when I heard, Bill, that Club Link was even considering doing something like this.
Yeah, it really upset a lot of us because it's the whole community is called Glen Abbey, and it was built around the golf course. When the golf course was built in 1977, I believe, it was kind of the focal point. And, residents here, we go to the Canadian Open. I was at the Open this year, and I ran into some of my neighbors. It's a great event, and the golf course was designed with spectators in mind. So if you go back to pictures of the 1976 Open, which was held in Montreal, people had periscopes because they couldn't see in front of them. Whereas when you go to Glen Abbey, it's kind of a stadium design.
Yeah.
So the guy in front of you is a couple of feet below you, so you can see everything. And it's very upsetting that somebody would buy a golf course and then decide along the way that they want to turn it, rip it up, destroy history, and build something that's, we really, our plan doesn't call for it. What the town is doing really is defending its right to plan. The town has an official plan, and it calls for development in different areas of the town. That's been agreed to. And there's no development slated for that site, and there shouldn't be.
And that's where the argument comes in. I mean, it's one thing to say, to say, well, I just don't think it's a very good idea. We don't want to do this. I mean, once you get into the courts, obviously there are legalities, and I know that the town is approaching that with those parameters in mind. And when they turned this thing down initially, I think it was last February when they had that meeting, wasn't it, Bill?
Something like that.
Yeah, and they did that according to the Planning Act. In other words, this is not the way we have our town planned. And this is, I think it's unplanned growth area is actually what they've designated this because it was a golf course. And it just seems incredulous that somebody would come along and say, well, we're going to put high-rises and residences in here. And basically thumb their nose at the town's official plan. I mean, it's your town. I mean, those are the elected officials that have decided how this town is going to grow. And now you've got a corporation that's coming in there that's saying, no, we want to do this instead.
Yeah, it's just plain wrong. Really, we're talking about democracy here. And we just had a municipal election. The mayor was reelected. Just about all the council was reelected. There are some new councillors that have come on board. And we canvassed councillors to see what their opinions were of Glen Abbey. And And basically, they all said they think it should be saved. So the people have spoken in this thing, and really it's a fight to determine democratic rights versus the rights of developers with huge pockets.
And we're getting into wordsmithing here, and when you get into legalities, that can happen. I get that, but I mean, it's just the argument apparently that the Supreme Court, the court's going to have to hear this, Court of Justice here, is basically, I guess, a determination as to whether or not this golf course is a landscape or a constructed structure. Now, that may sound like, you know, the very same thing to an awful lot of people, but there are descriptions of different ways of planning and different ways of planning communities and building in communities. It's green space. I mean, you know, I forget about those words, Bill. This is green space, and basically what they want to do is eliminate the green space and put buildings up there in an area where the town and the people of the town want to have green space.
That's absolutely correct. And if you look at the 16 Mile Creek and drainage, I believe Conservation Halton is involved in this as well, because you need to preserve green space. If you pave it all over, then you've got increased runoff, that kind of thing. So you can talk about designing greens and all that at the building. Well, you know, it's land. It's been there for 42 years, 41 years, and trees have grown, grass grows. You know, you can't say that the trees were, they may have been planted by design, but they didn't grow by design. They grew because they're part of nature and they form a specific natural function. There's all sorts of wildlife there. So it's about respecting land and respecting the town's right to plan.
And I know I've had a quick look over at what ClubLink is proposing to do here, and obviously you've mentioned the numbers here, the 3,200 residential units and of course the high-rise buildings that they want to put in there. To try to appease, I guess, some of the concerns that you and others in the community have raised. They're suggesting, for instance, that the Golf Hall of Fame and a couple of other things that are already on there, they'd maintain those. But you know as well as I do, Bill, that if it's a residential area, nobody's going to go. I mean, you may as well tear that down, too. I mean, that's not solving anything.
Yeah, you know, the other thing they talk about is preserving the parkland in the valley. Well, you can't build on that anyway. It's a floodplain.
Yeah.
So there's no, and you're destroying history. You're destroying an iconic golf course that should be preserved for future generations. And that's what Save Glen Abbey is all about. It's about preserving history, preserving green space, and defending the town's right to plan.
And I look at this from, as you say, from a historical standpoint as well. And I've never played the course. I've been there for the Open, so I've walked the course, and I see what it's like. And a couple of years ago, we were over in Scotland, so of course we took a train trip up to St. Andrews. I mean, if you're there, you've got to look at it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a tourist attraction. People go there. I mean, you know, just to go and say, well, there's the locker room, there's the plaques where so-and-so won, etc. And Glen Abbey has developed that. You know, this is not a new facility. As you mentioned, it's got a history. And there have been some great moments in golf, and it's a tourist attraction. I mean, I got to think that quite aside from the planning aspect of this bill, that the town's got to be very upset about the fact that they're obviously going to lose a great deal of tourism dollars, that people come to this area, not just during the Open, but just to go and play at Glen Abbey, and that's going to be lost.
Yeah, absolutely. When you travel and you tell people where you're from. Oh, I'm from Oakville. Oh, where's that? Well, you know, Glen Abbey and the Canadian Open. Oh, yeah. Well, I live about a mile away from that. Oh, okay, I get it now. So you're absolutely right. It's a great draw to Oakville. We like to say it's the heart of Oakville.
Well, it's an attraction, and it's a magnet. And we all know from economic development discussions that we've had in just about every other community, including ours and yours, that it's very, very difficult to get people to do that, to actually say, yeah, you know what, that's worth driving to Oakville for. I mean, it's a wonderful community, and it's a great place to live. We know that. But at the same time, and you can attract tourism dollars and people that just want to play golf. That's a boon to the community. And basically, ClubLink is basically saying, no, we're not going to allow you to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, for our listeners here at Hamilton, if somebody had come along here and just said, yeah, you know what, I want to tear down Hamilton Golf and Country Club, by the way, where the Open's going to be this year, and I want to put some houses in there. People would be up in arms. You can't do that to our community. You can't tell us what you're going to do. Yet, so far, the court has allowed Clublink to basically dictate how Oakville is going to be designed.
Well, there are many fights that are going to go on in this war, and the heritage appeal is one of those fights. But the town is steadfast, and they've told us that they're going to fight this one, and they're investing funds to do that. So all of us in Oakville are pleased about that, because this is an iconic landscape that needs to be preserved for future generations. I want to be able to take my grandchildren there.
And I understand where the lawyers are coming from on this. The Council for Clublink emphasizes, I mentioned earlier, about this distinction between landscape and constructed structures. And obviously, according to the Planning Act, that's germane to this debate, I suppose. There's irrigation infrastructure, et cetera, we know that. That's a given. It's a golf course. But the fact is, it's green space. I mean, we just boil it right down to the elementary aspects here. It's a green space that draws a lot of people and attracts people to this community and makes money for this community. And we all know, of course, that if this were to happen, that obviously residential areas, it's not going to have that same sort of an impact on the community. As a matter of fact, we all know that building huge residential areas in communities intends to actually cost them money, because there's the servicing aspect, there's the policing aspect, there's the maintenance aspect of the roads, etc. It's the total opposite of what the city wants to see and the town wants to see for that area.
Absolutely.
So where do you go on this? Now, there's been no date set. That's my understanding is that obviously the town's going to continue to fight this as far up the ladder as they need to go. The Court of Appeal has not yet set a date, but I'd like to think it's going to happen sooner than later.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on what the courts decide, but what I can tell you is that those of us in Save Glen Abbey, we're trying to get the word out to people that the fight is ongoing. Last year during the Open, we put up some signs that say saved, not yet. So this is an ongoing struggle. It's going to be ongoing. And certainly with the council that we've elected, we have faith in them that they're going to defend their right to plan, and they're going to do what they can to preserve Glen Abbey Golf Course. So I'm sure there's a number of things that they can do, and a number of things that they haven't thought of yet that they will do. So it's going to be an interesting fight, and in the meantime, Glen Abbey's going to stay there, and we're going to be able to continue to enjoy it.
There's a political aspect to this, but it's got to be discussed, and it's something the province is going to have to look at. I mean, obviously your town council's on side with this, but there's a debate going on in Burlington right now too about high rises and where they should go and how tall they should be, etc. And it is related, because this is basically talking about, do towns or cities have the right to decide how they're going to develop and how they're going to build? And I know that there are committees that look after this thing, and there are boards of appeal that will do this sort of thing. And yes, you want investment, and yes, there has to be growth. We get all that. But at the same time, you like to think that the town should have the final say in situations like that. And I know the previous provincial government actually did that when they tore down the Ontario Municipal Board and revised that and said, look, we want to give more power to the community. Well, that's what you guys are asking for right now, is give the power and give the final say to the community, not to some court someplace.
Absolutely. We're the people that live here, and we're the people that will have to face the traffic if, God forbid, the place is developed. We're going to have to put up with the added infrastructure, and on top of it, the insult of having something where it wasn't planned to be.
Are you a golfer, Bill?
I wouldn't use the term golfer. I'd probably call myself a duffer. I like to get out there and play. Glen Abbey'd be wasted on me, but I love the game, and I love the spectator aspect of it. And Glen Abbey's designed for the spectators. So I've gone to the Canadian Open a number of times. I was there 2 days over the last Canadian Open, and really with Save Glen Abbey in mind, I was so impressed with the design and how it favors the spectator.
Well, it certainly does, and for those of us that have been to the Open, and I'm in the same boat as you, I would never try to play that course. I mean, it's not in my ballpark, but I mean, I've been there to walk it and see, and there have been some great moments. I mean, you talked about the historical perspective. We've mentioned that Jack Nicklaus, of course, one of the all-time great golfers, designed the course and has revamped it actually a few times over the last number of years. But there have been some great moments there. Tiger Woods in his first Canadian Open up there, and on 18 when he hit that fabulous shot from the fairway bunker and just about hold it out. I mean, that's still one of the great moments, not just in Canadian golf, but in golf, period.
In golf, yeah.
Mike Weir just about winning the Open a couple of years ago in a playoff, and some other things like this, and you don't want to lose that. And you can see that anytime you go to that course right now and go into the clubhouse, those moments are there, and you feel like you're a part of history. You tear that stuff down and put a bunch of houses up there, that's gone.
Yeah, it's, to us in Oakville, this is like the National in Augusta. This is an iconic golf course. You mentioned the time that Mike Weir, I think he was playing off against Vijay Singh.
Yes, he was.
And I was there. I remember walking back and forth between the 17th and the 18th, and you talk about the Masters in April and the great shots that get made, and the announcers talk about them years later. Well, people talk about Tiger's great shots at Glen Abbey. I remember when Jack Nicklaus and Lee Trevino played back in the 80s, and walking between the two of them, and the banter with Lee Trevino and the crowd was fantastic, and that's a great memory of golf and history, and it needs to be preserved.
Well, the players on the tour love the course. That's why they keep coming to the Open every year, and I'm hoping that people speak out on this. And like I say, when we get closer to the court date, I'm sure we'll talk again about this, Bill, and hopefully get the community and hopefully some of the people involved in the decision-making here on side with just how important this is. Thanks so much for the update on this, Bill. I know we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Have a great day, Bill.
You too.
Thanks.
Bill McKinlay from the Friends of Glen Abbey. And good luck in your battle to make sure that this stays the way it is and stays as one of the iconic Canadian landmarks, really, from a sports standpoint and also from a tourism standpoint. We'll do a short break, and then we're back. The Bill Kelly Show continues here on 900 CHML.